Hello and welcome everyone to the Start U of G course schedule presentation for Bachelor of Engineering students. Before we begin, I just want to make sure that everyone who is in this session is here for one of the Bachelor of Engineering programs listed on the screen. If you're not in a Bachelor of Engineering program, you can find your degree sessions program or your degree sessions course selection link in the Start U of G website. My colleague Will is going to post that in the Q&A section so that you can get there and find your session. For today's agenda, we're going to be hearing from your academic advisor a bit more about how your course schedule works. We'll start with a land acknowledgement, go over some common terms for course selection and the registration guide for new students. You'll hear a little bit about WebAdvisor and academic advising at the University of Guelph. We also have a bit of information if you're a transfer student or an international student, because there's a few reminders you need before you do your course selection. We'll have lots of time throughout the presentation for you to ask questions. In the Teams Town Hall, there is a Q&A section. You can create a post, and that will show us that you have a question. We'll be answering those either by typing them or by answering them throughout the presentation. So anytime you have a question, just create a post in the Q&A. Before we start with our course schedule information, I just want to take some time to acknowledge the land that we are on today. So I'm joining from our University of Guelph campus. The Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe, and the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit. We recognize that today this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and in acknowledging them reminds us of our relationship to the land where we all learn and grow. Now that you're all Guelph Griffins, it's important for you to take a chance to learn about land acknowledgements and why we do them, even looking into what the lands are that you are on if you're visiting from or if you're joining us from around the province. Will is going to post a link in the chat so you can learn a little bit more about the University of Guelph's land acknowledgements. So, like I said before, my name is Janessa. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm a member of the START team. I'm the coordinator of student transitions and engagement here at the University of Guelph, and I'm part of the student experience department. I work with a team of 5 student staff to help you throughout your transition to university, and I'll be here throughout your first year as well. I'm also going to introduce you to Will. Will.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Will Coleman. I'm in my 5th year here at the University of Guelph in the Bachelor of One Health program, and I'm an orientation facilitator with the student experience team. So I'm working with our staff and everyone in the department to sort of put together programming that's happening for students over the summer who are coming to university in the fall, and then of course putting together all of the wonderful events that are happening during orientation week in September. So we're really looking forward to seeing you then. Back over to you, Janessa.
Thanks, Will. If you have any questions after today's presentation or questions that aren't related to your course schedule that we might answer today, you can always email us at start@uoguelph.ca, and Will, myself, or another member of our team will be happy to get back to you. Now I'm going to pass things over to David. David.
Hi, everybody. My name is David Romero. I go by he, him pronouns, and I am one of the engineering academic advisors and program specialists, and there are 2 of us. In terms of my background, I did a bachelor's of chemical engineering and have about 15 years of environmental engineering experience before coming here. And the other advisor is Andrew Isaac, and he graduated with a civil engineering degree and is a professional engineer with about 20 years of civil engineering experience. So if you guys have any questions after this presentation or throughout your academic careers, feel free to email us at engcounts@uofwealth.ca. That is a shared inbox between Andrew and myself, and so that's where we will be communicating with you with. So in terms of academic advising at Guelph, there are many different reasons why a student might see an academic advisor. One of our main roles here is to help students navigate the academic rules and requirements of your degrees, and to support you through academic challenges, and potentially liaising with different support groups on sites, as well as student advocacy, co-op, exchange, pretty much any questions that you have regarding that touch on academics is what you would come to us. And again, you can email us using the engcounts@uofwealth.ca. Some of you may have already done that, which is great. But just a reminder, anytime you email us, please use your official Guelph email and include your student number for identification purposes, because sometimes with the amount of students that we have, you may have the same name as another student out there. So just make things a little bit easier for us. So some common terms you might hear during course selection are course selection windows. So this is just when you can register for your courses based off of your degree program. I'll touch on this a little bit in the future, but for first year students, this will be the first year that we are giving students their first year schedules, and we're a little bit late on that, but you won't actually have to select your courses. So a little bit more on that later. In terms of credits, they're typically worth 0.5 or 1 credit. And there definitely are some credits within the engineering stream that are 0.75 credits as well. And those are typically design courses. So there's just different weights that relate to the relative difficulty or academic weight of different courses. And you'll also hear the terms part-time student or full-time student. So for academics, you're considered a part-time student if you're registered for less than 1.5 credits. And if you're registered for 1.5 or more credits, you'd be considered an academic full-time student. This is not the same, though, as tuition. The tuition requirements for a full-time student would be 2.0 credits. So just make sure that you understand the distinction there. And also this, in terms of students registered with student accessibility services, they may have that definition changing depending on their situation. You will also hear us talk about electives, and this will generally be courses that are overall required to graduate and fulfill the academic requirements of your degree, but the specific courses are not required for your declared major. So you have a little bit of flexibility with some of these courses, and they're part of a suite of specific courses that will contribute to your degree, but are not considered core to your program. Some other terms, the undergraduate calendar is an important piece of important resource to use because it includes all of our university policies and procedures. And so note specifically, there is a new calendar released every year, and the calendar that you are part of is the 2026 and 2027 calendar, which is the current available which is currently available. And as we move forward into new years, you are still referencing the 2026 and 2027 calendar unless you're told differently. In the undergraduate calendar is also a schedule of dates. This is a listing of all the important dates by semester, things like your last day to drop classes, when the last day to register for classes are, reading week, and other important deadlines and dates as well. WebAdvisor is the system that we use for course selection, as well as viewing your progress for your academic requirements, checking tuition, and applying for graduation. And so this is really the main UI or user interface that students will be getting really familiar with over their academic careers here. So some of you may have already seen the registration guide for new students. This includes the details for your first year courses. There's a little bit of information here. Again, engineering students are a little bit unique in that the courses will be selected for them. And the website is here if you haven't seen that quite yet. So WebAdvisor, this is an example of progress that you might the progress tab for students, but it is the online platform where you can manage pretty much all of your academic requirements, and again, access to your financial statements. And this is a summary that you see here of a student's progress, and it will show different requirements, GPA, their major, and it will highlight whether certain requirements are being met or need to be or still outstanding. And it is the main tool to be used by students. And you can find some course selection information at that link below or on that slide as well in terms of student planning. So we have a couple of videos. There's a video here for creating a plan for WebAdvisor. This isn't really relevant since we have students being loaded into their courses, but this will be available for students to take a look at for future purposes in terms of creating the plan for the rest of their degree as well. But for the purposes of this meeting, we're just going to forego this, and the link will be provided in case you do want to take a look at this at a later time. And somewhat similarly, there's another video for registering for courses. But again, students will be loaded into their courses. So you won't necessarily need to register for courses unless you're making changes, but we'll talk a little bit about that. So this is also a video that will be available to you that you can take a look at afterwards especially if you are looking at making changes to your schedule. I'm going to pause real quick for any questions, if there are any that have come through.
I'm not seeing any questions in the Q&A.
Okay, I think I see a few, but I think some of them will be addressed. I think I see one about adjusting a timetable, but we'll talk a little bit about that actually in the upcoming slides. So in terms of setting up your schedule, again, your fall and winter semesters will be selected for you, and you should be automatically registered into your courses before June 29th. So what we would like you to do is log into WebAdvisor and review your registered courses to make sure that you have the correct courses and that your schedule is conflict-free. Okay, so this is the first time, I will caveat that this is the first time we are trying this. So there may be issues with your schedule. So if you see an issue, do not hesitate to reach out to us, again, through that email, the EngCounts email. And you can refer to course maps and the elective lists that are both technical and complementary using the program guide, which is linked in this slide. For additional information, especially in terms of your required courses and future, the remaining courses for the rest of your degree as well. So in terms of program requirements and the courses that you require, this slide summarizes the different courses that you should be enrolled in for both fall and winter for the different disciplines. So you'll see that there's a little bit of a difference depending on the major that you're in, but this is what these these are the courses that you should be enrolled in. So take a close look at these to make sure that you aren't missing any. And again, if you are, or you're running into a conflict in your provided schedule, then that is when you would need to reach out to us, and we will help you resolve. So making schedule changes. So I think someone had a question about this, but you can adjust your timetable, which is generally by selecting different lecture or different lab sections based on availability in WebAdvisor after July 10th. So there'll be a period of time where you won't be able to make changes to your courses, but in that time, you can take a look at what changes you may want to make. So you may be able to waitlist yourself into another section after July 10th, but just be aware that that's going to drop you out of your current section, okay? And the waitlist does not guarantee you a spot. There's a very specific reason that we are providing, we are loading students into their courses, and it's because we have a very sensitive schedule and there's a lot of moving pieces. And so we very strongly recommend you keep your provided schedule because we can't guarantee that you'll get a space in your desired section. So kind of continuing on in schedule changes, adjustments for schedules will be prioritized for varsity students or students that have student accessibility service requirements, or have accommodations through SAS. But note that and I know this question comes up a lot every year from students, but we can't guarantee that we can make adjustments for extracurricular commitments like work or your hobbies or non-varsity sports, or for commuting challenges. We will try to do what we can, but we cannot promise or guarantee that this will be possible given the complexity of schedules and availability of space. If you do plan to reduce your course load, for example, to go from 5 courses a semester down to 4 courses a semester, please reach out to us before doing so, because this will have implications or potential implications when it comes to the timing of your degree, and we should understand the overall context of why you're looking to reduce your course load before we make that change. But if that's something that you're interested in doing, that is totally fine. Just reach out to us beforehand. So for transfer students, it would be a good idea to reach out to academic advising ahead of time to make sure that the program requirements are being addressed. In terms of transfer credits, we'll have those processed in August. And in terms of finding your registration date, that is determined by the number of completed and in progress credits. And so you'll fall into a very specific window, a course selection window based off of those credits. And you can visit the Start U of G website for a step-by-step guide for course selection. For high school courses, you may be eligible for transfer credits for IB courses or AP exams, and different, if certain requirements have been met. So that will be considered once we've received your official scores, and there's a QR code there to take a look at what potential transfer credits there are. So for international students, it's important to understand that when you're registering as a part-time student or potentially taking a leave, which means you're not registered for any courses in a semester, or potentially completing more than 50% of your program online, which really doesn't apply to engineering because most of our courses are in person, but this could have implications for your student status, your work eligibility, or your PGWP, your postgraduate work permit as well. So make sure that you're contacting your GPS advisor, and you can schedule an appointment with them, and also check with us to make sure that the academic requirements of your degree are not being adversely impacted. So some important dates and deadlines. So the undergraduate registration deposit was due on June 10th, or sorry, June 15th. The course selection window for new students will be July 10th. But again, engineering students will have their courses selected. So July 10th is actually the date after which you will be able to register or make changes to your provided schedule. And then late July, you'll have a semester bill posted in WebAdvisor. And then for September 18th, that's when your fall semester payment is due. Okay, so I'm going to, I guess this is a time for questions. Not sure if we have any questions here.
Yeah, we've got a couple. Some we've already answered, but just to reiterate, Ria's asked, when does my schedule come out?
So your schedule should be out and on WebAdvisor and posted before June 29th. My understanding is that schedules were starting to be loaded yesterday and into today. So by June 29th, you should have your schedule.
Right. Evelyn had asked a question about that too, saying that they logged in and saw that it was empty, but sounds like that's how it should look until those schedules get loaded. Sameen has asked, I already started planning my courses. Will the automatic system remove my timings?
Yes. So, Sabine, that will happen if you have planned courses in your calendar. Your provided schedule will override those selections.
Great. And Sahaj Veer asked, so we can't make our own schedule and choose the timings of each class.
So you could make your own schedule after July 10th. Again, I don't recommend doing this because the worst case um, that can happen is that you are not able to register for one of your required courses. So we have to be very, very careful about making changes to the schedule. So that's and so to reach out to us before you do something like that. But yes, unfortunately, you will be provided, fortunately or unfortunately, you will be provided with your courses. So, but you will have the flexibility after July 10th to make changes.
Okay, and then Kyra May asked to confirm, if I am a transfer student, my courses will be preloaded, and then I will likely need to drop courses after the transfer credit is assessed in August.
So if you're a transfer student, I would reach out to us directly about this specifically because you may have different academic requirements depending on what you've completed at your other school. So I think it was Kyra you mentioned. Reach out to us at the EngCounts email, and I can take a look at your specific situation. That goes for any transfer student.
Great. And then Easton has asked, is there a list of recommended laptops?
Yes. So if you're wondering about technical requirements, we have this available on our intranet website, which you can get to through the U Guelph website. If you have questions about that, though, you can again send us an email at EngCounts, and I will pick up that email and send you the link to the required or recommended specifications for computers.
Great. And we've got a question that's not quite course selection related, but perhaps you know, when do we get confirmation of enrollment letters to access our RESPs?
So I will have to follow up on this, but I believe that confirmation letters would be available once tuition has been paid. but I'm not 100% sure. If that's something that you're looking at, I think, again, reach out to us through EngCounts, and I will follow up on the earliest we can get that.
And maybe, Will, if you could see if you could find that information online to post a link, that would be great. Evelyn asked, how many electives am I allowed and when will I be able to choose them?
So for first year students, there are no actual elective courses. There's no electives that you have to pick. The electives will be available, like you won't need to pick any electives for any engineering specialty until your second year. So for first year, you can kind of hold strong and you don't need to make any choices in terms of electives. But for the future, you can certainly come through and talk to us throughout the year about your future planning and kind of what you're thinking about taking in the future, what electives might make the most sense for you, and other decisions in terms of what kind of makes the most sense for electives.
Great. And Alexander asked, if I wanted to switch my engineering major, when would I be able to do this?
So switching your engineering major can be difficult. It is dependent on three main factors. First, is there space in the program? Second, grades. And third, it is based off of a personal letter and your reasons for switching. The earliest that you would be able to transfer or request a transfer would be after you've completed first year. So you could request a transfer at the end of winter semester or before the last day of classes for winter semester by sending us a letter requesting a transfer. But I would say with transfer requests, come and talk to us before you make the transfer, or because we should have some consideration in terms of why you're making the transfer. Does this program kind of make sense for you given your interests and your strengths? And so we should have a little bit more of a detailed conversation, but it wouldn't be until after first year.
Great. And then Man here asks, how does the schedule work with varsity sports and athletes?
So for varsity sports, I had mentioned this in an earlier slide, but reach out to us specifically when if you have specific requirements for your practices or require accommodations, and we will try to make accommodations.
Great. And Easton has asked, for mechanical engineering, semester 2, it says I need 0.5 restricted electives. What is this, and do I need to select it?
So for semester 2, one second, I'm going to check something here. I did not believe that there were any electives required for semester 2 mechanical engineering, but let me just make sure. So I'm taking a look at the academic calendar. So I believe you're looking at an older version of the calendar for mechanical students starting this year. There's actually no requirement for an elective in the winter. So there might be a little bit of confusion. So reach out to me or us directly again at EngCounts and we can kind of clear this up. But for this year and this cohort starting this year, there's no electives being chosen. But you eventually will have to take a restricted elective. And a restricted elective is either going to be a technical elective, like an engineering course, or it's going to be a complementary studies elective, which is a social science course or something, or humanities course, something along those lines. Again, we can help with navigating what courses make the most sense, but the program guide does discuss this as well.
Great. And I'm not sure that we have the information for this next one, but Dominic has asked, will our second year course selection be the same?
So we are hopeful that it will be the same. The challenge with second year is that there is going to be a little bit of a deviation, but currently the plan is to core load students again and provide them with their schedules for second year. But this has not been 100% confirmed. So this is a plan, and sometimes things don't always go to plan. So, but for now, that is the plan.
Okay, great. Cynthia asked, can we drop the co-op stream after first year? And will this make our graduation in 4 years instead of 5?
Yes. So you can drop the co-op stream. We don't necessarily recommend doing this because co-op is a valuable way of getting experience, but we also understand that students may have specific situations. So yes, you can, and that would result in your graduation being 4 years instead of 5.
Great. And Shrayan has asked, do I need to worry about mechatronics not being accredited? Is there anything I should keep in mind for the future or research on my own?
So accreditation happens during the first year of the graduating cohort, the cohort of the first graduating year. So the kind of unfortunate or inconvenient piece about accreditation for new engineering degrees is that they can't be formally accredited until that year has graduated, because the accreditation body needs a body to see the work that has been completed by that cohort in order for accreditation to happen. But there is a very low risk. I can never guarantee that it's zero, but um, there's a very low risk of any issues with accreditation.
Okay, and then Samin has asked, if we need to make changes on July 10th, what time will we be able to do so? And if we do get put on a wait list for those changes but don't get it, will we be able to revert back to the original schedule?
Yes. So again, I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing this, but you will be able to, the course selection window, see what time that opens, but you would be matched with the course selection window of first years on July 10th, which I think it's 8 a.m. I don't know, I'm having troubles with this, but I believe, Janessa or Will, I'm not sure if you have access to the course selection windows, but
I'll
I
try to pull it up.
think it's 8 a.m. Okay, while that's being looked at, I'll answer the rest of that. So if you get put on a wait list, okay, first piece of that is the only way to be on a wait list is if you drop the registration for your previous course. So let's say for chemistry, you wanted to wait list for a 8:30 a.m. section, but you're registered in a 1 p.m. section. You have to drop your 1 p.m. section before you wait list, which means that you could effectively lose your spot. Someone could take that spot. So there is not, and that's why we recommend you staying with your courses, because you won't be able to revert back. You may not be able to revert back to your original schedule. You might end up on a wait list for the section that you dropped if you're trying to go back. So you really need to be careful there. Selection window. So I'm trying to pull this up.
Yeah, I didn't see an exact time
So I would
listed.
assume, based off of the other windows, that it would be 8 a.m. But just pay attention to or check back in on the course selection window website for the specific time. But I believe it would be 8 a.m.
Great. And the next question, I know Will answered it in the chat, but for the sake of the recording, Avery asked, since first-year students don't need to register for their courses and they're loaded for us, will we get an email once this is done, or should we be checking over the coming days?
I would check over the coming days. I'm not expecting there to be an email being sent when this is completed. So I would check.
Great. And Cynthia's asked, does the auto selection apply if you want to take summer classes? Also, is it possible to pick up a minor, specifically a science one, such as biomed eng student?
Sorry, I saw that question. I was reading it, and oh, there it is. So summer courses will not be auto-loaded because typically they are done on a by need basis. And I think someone had a question about this earlier about taking courses in the summer. So the summer courses won't be available for registration until I believe it's going to be sometime in March in terms of registration. And I'll answer the other question that was there about changing, like taking summer courses. You can take courses in the summer to lighten your semester load, but you have to be very careful because not all courses are being offered. So again, if this is something that you're planning on doing in terms of adjusting your course load, whether it's for the first year or actually the rest of your whole degree, reach out to us to make sure that we're picking the right courses and we're not inadvertently extending your time for graduation, or just so we understand the overall implications, because the engineering degree is very prescriptive and the path to graduation is very, very tight. And to address the minor question, it is possible to pick up a minor. It's very difficult to do this as a student. So typically a minor is going to be 5.0 credits, an additional 5.0 credits, which is effectively an additional 10 credits. Typically, you won't be able to fit this in because, again, your semesters are so packed as engineering students. There is the ability to overlap a certain amount of courses, but my general recommendation with this is that you shouldn't do a minor if there's going to be potential for it to affect your major. And if you pick up a minor, most likely you're looking at extending your degree. There are exceptions to this. So if, again, you're looking at your specific situation, then reach out to us and we can kind of have a conversation about what would make sense with your minor.
Great. There's one that I'm just going to read out for the sake of the recording and anyone who might be tuning in later. But Ben here asked, what time do classes or lectures typically begin in the morning? And we'll reply to the earliest time for courses to start is 8:30 a.m., but it will depend on your schedule and what time your first class starts. And then I see we've got a question from Rayanne. Would it be possible for students to take classes in the summer? If so, how will that affect our second year schedule? And I think we've chatted a little bit about this.
Yes, so you can take courses in the summer. Most likely, these are going to be either courses that maybe you weren't successful with, which hopefully doesn't happen. Unfortunately, it happened to me. So there are some courses that are offered if you need to retake courses, but not all courses are available. Most likely, and the most common scenario is taking complementary studies electives during the summer to help offload your future semesters. And these are courses like Intro to Psychology, Intro to Marketing, things that are non-engineering courses, but that will eventually help you offload your future semesters. But again, I would reach out about that specifically in your time with us here, because we should understand the context of what you're trying to accomplish and why you're looking at doing what you're doing.
Right. Daniel has asked for us to go back to the program requirements course summary slide. So I'm just going to pull that up on screen for a bit so they can get a screenshot.
So just kind of a note on this. I think that there, again, were some questions related to this, but you'll notice that there are no, again, electives here. So all of your courses are going to be required courses. And so you won't have to pick any electives. And again, I think someone was asking about, looks like someone was asking about civil engineering. Um, Civil engineering is here in the third column. And again, you can see that there are no elective choices here. For first year, you don't have to do anything. There are no electives to pick.
Great. And then there was a question about from Alishba, who should I reach out to make sure I'm picking the right courses in the summer?
Yeah, so that would be us. You can reach out to EngCounts, or while you're here, you can certainly come in to schedule an appointment with us, or drop by. We will have drop-in sessions throughout the semester, so you can pop by if your questions are really easy. And I think someone is asking a similar question about, are we in office if we want to discuss things in person? We are absolutely here throughout the year. We are here in the summer, so if you have questions about things, you're more than welcome to ask questions, whether you're here during the semesters or even in the summer, we're still here.
Great. Cynthia asked about when you'd be available to discuss things in person with an academic advisor.
Yep. So um, we're we're here throughout the summer. We are located in the Thornborough building, so it's the engineering building, and you'll see a sign. There is a way to schedule with us on the engineering website. You can find us through the academic advising link um, on the on the website in terms of undergraduate supports. And you can book an appointment with us. You can email us. And yeah.
I'm just checking if there's any other questions. Someone asked what's the office address, and I think for that they'd have to look up the University of Guelph and then the Thornborough building specifically.
That's right.
Yeah. And just to, if that person, Eric, if you haven't been to campus before, if you're driving, you'd be parking in one of the lots sort of on the outside of the campus and then walking to the Thornborough building from there. It's not one that you can drive right up to.
So there was a question about course link, and it looks, I see Will had answered this, but someone was asking when we'll get access to course link. So course link is different from WebAdvisor. Course link is used to manage the specific courses and not necessarily your registration for courses. So it's like course material. It's the way for your instructors to communicate with you as well. And Will is correct in what he said, that this is not going to be open until September 10th, so you won't have access to it until then.
And then Erin Green has a question about class times. So you might have answered what the times are for class during the day. Do you know what class times look like for engineering students specifically?
So the times for classes during the day can range. It really depends on what the course is. Again, because there are so many different courses to manage, a lot of these courses have labs. They're scattered throughout the semester, or sorry, throughout the day. So again, the earliest course is 8:30 in the morning, and I think the latest course ends. I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure it's around 9:30 p.m. at night.
Great. And then Gia asks, I was wondering if there will be a similar info session at the end of next year to help us navigate our second year.
So that's a great idea. This was intended for first year students. So I'll take this back and see if this is something that we can run for second year students and kind of moving forward. Again, I kind of encourage you to come and talk to us specifically because first year is very, I would say, easy to do this for because your courses are so prescriptive. But as we move forward into second year, we start to deviate and specialize, and your situations can change quite drastically depending on kind of what's happening. So it would be beneficial if you have any questions, really just to come to us throughout the year and we can talk about your specific situation.
And then we've got a question from Cynthia, and this sounds like one where they might need to connect with you directly, David. But if they're considering grad school and they might require specific classes that are not included in a student's major, will they be able to take those classes?
So yes, we should talk about this one specifically. We may need to talk to the grad school admissions as well, depending on kind of what degree you're looking at eventually taking. But most commonly, it's pretty a niche situation because the base requirements of your engineering degree would most likely fulfill the requirements of most masters. I'm not aware of very many students, if any students, that are taking specific classes that are not required by their major, but this could be, again, a very unique case. So Cynthia, I would say, again, kind of reach out to us during the year, I would say, and kind of talk about your plans moving forward and beyond your undergraduate degree.
Great. And then Cheyenne has asked, will both the fall 2026 and winter 2027 be released and available to view at the same time, or will we have to wait to view winter 2027?
So the courses themselves, offerings for fall and winter have been released, but yes, your schedule will be loaded for both fall and winter at the same time.
Great. And then Ramani asked a question that I'll actually answer. Is this slideshow posted anywhere? So this session is being recorded and you'll be able to view the recording on the START guide. So if you Google START U of G, you'll be able to go into our START guide and we'll be posting the recordings there. We'll also be sending out an email on Monday, and that will have a link to the page where you can find all of the recordings and come back and view the slides as well as the answers to questions that were shared.
So I think Dominic had a question here. I'm not sure the overall context of this, but what will happen if you don't get your required course that you want to change? I think if I'm understanding this question correctly, if you want, Dominic is maybe asking, if you want to change or transfer into a different engineering program, what happens if you don't have your required course? If that's the context of this question, then we would need to take a look at changing the sequence of your schedule of studies to match your new transfer, assuming you are successful with the transfer, and see what would happen to your time to graduation. It could affect your time to graduation, depending on the prerequisites. If the question was more about what happens if you don't have a required course that you need for your current major, then in that case, then reach out to us again at engcounts at uofguelph.ca, and then we can help you get into your required courses if for some reason there's a course that's missing.
I know we've touched on this one earlier, but we've got another question about how things work for varsity athletes. So could you quickly just share what a student does if they're a varsity athlete with some schedule conflicts?
So for varsity athletes or students that are registered with student accessibility services that may have timing requirements, as part of their accommodations, reach out directly to us, and we will figure out a way to adjust your schedule to accommodate your practice schedule, or again, like the accommodation requirements as part of student accessibility services. So Aaron, I would say reach out to us directly.
Great. And Miriam just asked for a bit of clarification. So to confirm, we should receive our course schedule by or after June 29th. Could you quickly go over what this process looks like?
Okay, so in terms of the process as a whole, what it will look like is if you when you log into WebAdvisor with your student ID, um, the and your login information, then your courses will be selected for you. So right now, if you go into WebAdvisor, I think a few of you have already, you'll see that they're blank. They'll just be populated with courses that you're registered into, and you don't need to do anything further.
Awesome. And then you had asked a question about checking the course schedule on WebAdvisor. Where would that be in WebAdvisor for them to check?
Right. So I would encourage you guys, if you haven't already logged into WebAdvisor, is to log into WebAdvisor and take a look. There are a few tabs, and Will had mentioned this or in his comments, in his answer to this question already. But you can take a look at there's a few different tabs along the top. And this is actually outlined within the two videos that we did not look at, but will be provided. As to where this course schedule will be.
Great. And then Maya asked for the co-op portion, will we have to find our own placements? And how would we go about this?
Yes, so co-op will not happen until after first year anyway. So this is something that will be looked at in future years, but yes, you generally will have to find your own co-op placements. The co-op positions are available through Experience Guelph, and you have co-op advisors that will help you apply to jobs, but you are not guaranteed a job. And in some case, and you definitely will have to look for jobs, but there are going to be some jobs that are specifically shared with us, but they also may be shared with other schools. It is possible as well to be registered or to potentially find a job that's outside of the co-op program, and bring it in as long as it meets the requirements of an engineering job. But this is something to discuss with your co-op advisor when you're here and looking for jobs.
Great. I'm just looking through the Q&A and I think we've answered
I think I see
most of the questions.
I see a couple here
Okay.
that I wanted to answer. There was one, Imad asked, like, if we are not able to get into our required courses after the waitlist, what happens? So you will have your courses, your required courses, you'll be registered into your required courses. If you decide to take yourself off of a course that is waitlisted, or sorry, remove yourself from a course that you're registered in and add yourself to a waitlist, we can't guarantee that you're going to be able to get into the course that you're waitlisted on. So there is the possibility that you are going to extend your graduation timing if you may not get into the course effectively if you're waitlisted. And so this could have impacts with your time to graduation. This is why we are strongly recommending you stay in your courses. Again, if you're a varsity athlete or you're registered with SAS, reach out to us. But anything beyond that, we cannot guarantee that you're going to be able to register into courses that you have added yourself on a waitlist for.
Great. And there's one that I'm just going to read out for sake of the recording. So Miriam asked, when is the tuition payment due? And Will shared that the fall semester payment is due by September 18th. And you can find more about those financial dates and deadlines on the financial dates and deadlines of the University of Guelph website.
I do see a question here about, and Will had answered this question. This is about, so Cynthia asked, will there be a specific window to change your winter schedule during the fall semester, or is it just during the July 10th window? Effectively, the window is from I think the last day to add classes for winter courses is actually in January. So really the window is after July 10th until the last day to add classes in January. So it's quite a large window. But as Will mentioned here, like if there are any issues, then definitely bring them up sooner rather than later.
Great. And Elishma asked a question about getting a job at Guelph, like a regular part-time job. And those are the sorts of questions, I won't get into the answer in this session, but if you email us at start@uoguelph.ca, we'll be able to give you a little bit of information on finding a job as a student. So reach out to us at start@uoguelph.ca. We're getting close to the end of our time here. I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. If folks do have any questions after today, you can always reach out to David. Maybe David, one more time, if you could say the email address for academic advising.
Sure. So for engineering, it is engcounts@uoguelph.ca. So ENGCOUNF at uoguelph.ca. And again, feel free to reach out to us at any point. And again, you can meet with us during the summers if you have more specific questions. Maybe we didn't get to your answer or to answer your question, or you have very specific questions about your specific situation. For sure, come to us um, and again, we're available for meetings. We're here. We're answering emails.
Right. So if students take a look at their schedule when it's posted around June 29th, they can reach out to you with those questions.
That's right.
Awesome.
There's a couple more
Okay.
questions in the Q&A.
I see.
There's one that could be useful. So student Cynthia heard that you could take classes in different universities during the summer and potentially transfer credits back to the University of Guelph. So is that true? How would I go about doing that?
Okay. Yep. So Cynthia, yes, that's true. You can do that. There are some specific requirements to be able to do this. The process is generally called letter of permission. Again, I don't necessarily recommend doing this unless you absolutely have to. There could be additional cost. It may not benefit you in terms of time to graduation, but depending on your specific situation, it could make sense. There are specific requirements to be able to do this. You need at least a 60% average to be able to do this. And the course needs to be approved ahead of time as well. But again, if there are specific questions about this, reach out to us. But yes, that is true, but just be aware that there are some rules associated with that.
Okay, great. And I see another question about, will this meeting be available for viewing later? And the answer is yes. So this session has been recorded and it will be posted in our online start guide. So if you go to startuofguelph.ca and click the start guide, we will be posting the recordings there alongside the other sessions and tours that we'll be hosting over the summer. So if once you get your schedule on the 29th and you want to come back and take a look, or you remember, hey, David answered that question, what did he say? You can come back and review the recording again. If you have any questions that aren't related to course selection, you can always email us at start@uoguelph.ca and we'd be happy to answer those. Even if you have a question about course selection and you're not sure where to go, you can send us that as well, and we can get you connected with David or whoever the right person might be. There's also some information about our student experience department on the screen, and I hope you follow us on social media where we'll be posting reminders and things about events. Thank you so much, David, for your time today and taking time to answer all of those questions. We really appreciate it. And thank you to Will as well for answering the questions in the chat. And thank you everyone for joining us today and for engaging, asking some really great questions. We're so excited to welcome you once you get to campus this September. I hope you have a wonderful summer and maybe we'll see you later at a Start U of G event this summer. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a good day. Bye.